So here's a promise I want you to claim is that Jesus is coming back again. He came his first time, that first Christmas morning when he was born in the manger. He's going to come a second time as the great King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He's going to judge the living and the dead. The resurrection is going to happen. It's going to be a wonderful time. I'll scroll down here to the bottom of it. We say in verse 27, "For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man." It's going to be super clear when Christ returns. He's going to come back. You're going to see him. It's going to be bright. It's going to be sudden. It's going to be wonderful. Paul says that this happens in the twinkling of an eye. The resurrection happens and it all is made well. But that's toward the end of it. Remember, at this point, we are in what is called Jesus's Olivet Discourse. This is his lecture on top of the Mount of Olives, and Jesus is answering the question after he surprised the disciples by saying that Jerusalem was going to be desolate, that it was going to be destroyed. And he actually uses that word desolate there at the end of Matthew chapter 23. He says, you stone the prophets that come to you, and I wish you would come to me. I wish he wanted to be like a hen that takes its chickens under its wings. He says, I wanted you to do that, but you wouldn't come to me. You rejected me. And so therefore this place is going to become desolate. That's going to be important as we read this, because Jesus says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, this is going to stick us in about Daniel chapter 9 and Daniel chapter 11 and Daniel chapter 12, where this desolation is spoken of. And so then you see that he says it's going to be standing in the holy place, temple, Jerusalem. And then we have this admonition, let the reader understand. So perhaps Jesus said that as he was teaching it, saying, if you're going to read the book of Daniel, you better be paying close attention to it. Maybe that's what it is. Or it could be that Matthew himself is inserting it here, saying you better be paying attention. Mark does the same thing. So it could be that Jesus is emphasizing that we need to pay attention, or it is the writers, Mark and Matthew, both saying you better be paying close attention to what's going on here. Luke, in the parallel account, when he is quoting and giving us what Jesus says, he doesn't say let the reader understand. I think Luke gives us the sense of what we should be thinking. Listen to how Luke says it. And then I want you to see here too, verse 16, notice how it goes. Verse 15, so when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand, and let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. And here's how Luke says it in the parallel account. Luke chapter 31, verse 20. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation has come near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Did you see the difference? Where Luke is going to help, he doesn't say let the reader understand. He's actually trying to give us the interpretation. It is when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies. This abomination of desolation is when the holy city, the holy place, is surrounded by the Roman armies, which would happen in 70 AD. Of course, Luke doesn't say it's Roman armies. He just says armies. And then he says, then we get that desolation word. Then you know that its desolation has come near. So what I put, and I got to say one more thing. If you're looking at Daniel, when Daniel talks about this abomination of desolation, he is talking about something that happened after Daniel, but happened before Jesus. And that is when Antiochus Epiphanes came in and desolated and made desecrated the holy place. He came in and did this. So a ruler has already abominated, has already made desolate the holy place while Jesus is saying this. But what's interesting for us today is that Jesus took that and he's saying, let the reader understand, and is expecting a replicate of Antiochus Epiphanes. He's expecting some desolation to happen again. And of course, that desolation is going to be done by the hands of the Romans as they destroy the temple and destroy Jerusalem in 70 AD. Now, What is also, if you read more of Daniel, and then if we're thinking about how the whole end of the world perhaps may come, and again, we need to remember, we see these words, let the reader understand. So we need to be extremely gracious, put our thinking caps on as we try to think through this, and even be patient with me as I'm thinking through and trying to apply all of these things as well. Is that for us too? There very well may be a repeat of this desolation again in the future. We see in the book of Revelation that Jerusalem is going to be surrounded by armies again, future wise. Of course, there's all kinds of debate on perhaps when Revelation was even written, but I think in as far as the very end of the world, uh, this very event could happen again, just like when Jesus said it. He said it has happened and he's expecting it to happen again. So, immediately, what we should be looking at is that this abomination of desolation is the surrounding of the Roman army around Jerusalem in 70 AD. And it was a terrible, atrocious event. The ancient historian Josephus tells us how terrible this was. Dead bodies in the roads, terrible sickness, all hope of escape not given to them. So he's saying, when you see this abomination of desolation happen, take Luke. When you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. So that'd be like us saying, when you see Lexington surrounded by armies, everybody in Kentucky better flee to the Appalachians. You better get into the mountains. You better go hide. Then let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in the house. Now, this is an odd thing for us because we don't just hang out on the top of our houses. But in the ancient times, that's what they did. The roofs was flat, and they would sit on top of their houses. It was their front porch, if you will. But they're saying, when you realize that Jerusalem is surrounded by armies, you better get going. You better not get down and pack your bags. You better get going. And then 18, let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. If you're out in the field working the crops, and you realize Jerusalem's surrounded by armies, you better get going, because this is what happened in 70 AD, is that the entire countryside, all of Judea, was lambasted, was destroyed, was pilfered by the Romans. And alas, for women who are pregnant, for those who are nursing infants in those days, are most vulnerable, are going to go through extreme difficulties. Pray that your flight may not be in winter on the Sabbath. This is going to be a terrible exodus. This is going to be a terrible running. He'll pray that it doesn't happen on winter or on the Sabbath day. For then there will be great tribulation. Again, if you read Josephus, it is a terrible experience for those in the city of Jerusalem. And he says, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be. Indeed, when Jerusalem was destroyed in the year 70, it was utter destruction, and it was great torment for those Jews. And then we're also thinking about that this was even worse than what they suffered when the Babylonians surrounded it. And again, we see the duplicates. We see things happening in the past happening again, and perhaps we may see that again when we talk about the very end of the world. In May, we'll be preaching through and talking through this Olivet Discourse and talking about the end of the world. And if those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved. This really takes us back to Daniel chapter 12, verse 1, because at the end of verse 1 of Daniel chapter 12, there's a mention to say that that those that were written in the book will be saved through this. I maybe get you the actual quotation here. At that time shall arise Michael. This is Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. The great prince who is charge over your people, the great archangel Michael. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never been, and there was a nation. But since there was a nation till that time, very similar to what Jesus is saying here. Um, but at that time, your people shall be delivered. Very similar to what Jesus just said here. Everyone whose name shall be found written in the book. So again, those that are elect, those who are saved, those who are God's. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. You can think of it when you think of the word elect, those that are written in the Lamb's book of life. We know, that book was written. God knows the end from the beginning. So, of course, he knows his children, and he knew his children from the very beginning. And a very common word used to talk about God's people, Christians, followers of Christ, is the word elect. Then, if anyone says to you, "Look, here's the Christ," again, this is we've seen this in our previous readings. We don't need to be running after any sort of Messiah. "Look, here's the Christ," or "There he is." Do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. Um, See, I have told you beforehand. So if they say to you, "Look, he's in the wilderness," do not go out. If they say, "Look, he is in the inner rooms," do not believe. And indeed, there were false people that rose up and said, "We'll deliver Israel from all of its enemies." Indeed, we have a record in the book of Acts of that happening leading up to that time. And then Josephus, the ancient Jewish historian, speaks about these similar type figures jumping up and doing that as well. And then here's my big takeaway I want for you. That's why I gave it to you in the beginning, in case you got tired of listening at this point. But verse 27, "For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man." So basically, Jesus is saying all of this to let them know, hey, all of these trouble times is going to happen to Jerusalem, but the Son of Man is not going to come yet. We saw that in our previous readings in Jesus's Olivet Discourse, is that the end, that all these things are just the beginning of birth pains. And so it's going to be clear when Jesus comes back. We're not going to miss the second coming. It will be utterly clear to us when Jesus comes back. It will be like lightning flashing from the east and shining as far as the west. And then you have this odd little saying here that Jesus gives us: "Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather," saying that all of these signs, when you see these signs, you know that the day is coming. I told you 3 or 4 videos ago that we have been living in the end times. We are in the end times, and we have been living in the end times since Jesus rose from the dead. The Apostle Paul considered himself living in the end times, and we should consider that ourselves as well. I pray that's been a blessing to you, and I'll see you in the next video.